Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. This is the Wednesday, June 28th edition, 2017. Hard to believe that we are at the end of June, and it's been a very active weather month. So we'll maybe kind of recap that as we end our show here tonight. But welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. We're going to be talking about kind of a different way of doing weather. We talk a lot with National Weather Service meteorologists and broadcast television meteorologists. But tonight we're going to talk about how we forecast the weather over the radio airwaves. And we have two great guests along with us tonight. We have Mike Cox along with us. He's up in the Triad or the Tri-Cities area, up where Ricky Matthews is at. And we also have Jennifer. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I'm gonna say your first name. I'll let you introduce yourself towards me. I don't want to mess it up. But Jennifer works for the Weather Eye Radio Network, and she's stationed up in the Twin Cities up in Minnesota. So welcome to you guys. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we look forward to hearing about you guys and what you kind of do as your daily job. So as we do that, this is a live broadcast. So anyone who is watching tonight, either via our YouTube, Google Hangouts, if you're watching on Facebook Live, Periscope, I think I got them all covered, James. I'm not sure what all you have us on tonight, but there's many outlets that you're watching us right now, so thank you for watching. If you have any questions tonight, please feel free to submit them via our Twitter page. It's the best one. That's the one we monitor the most. You can reach us at Carolina WX Group, or you can also post them on the Facebook Live. We have I have it going. I'm sure some of the other guys do as well. We'll kind of monitor that as we go throughout the show. And if you're listening on the rebroadcast, maybe if you downloaded the podcast and you're traveling somewhere, we'll let our guests promote their social media outlets at the end of the show, and that way you can reach out to them if you want to. So I think that's about all the housekeeping rules. I do want to mention we have a new panelist, really not new to you guys. Eric Proceus has been with us for a while. He's joined us 3, 4, 5 shows, I believe. He lives in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and Eric actually joined us last week. And after that, we had a conversation, and we extended an invitation, and Eric happily accepted. So Eric, I'll let you start off tonight. You are in the Memphis, Tennessee area. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and looking forward to our regular listeners and watchers of this program to get to know you and kind of learn a little bit more about the Mid-South weather patterns. So, Eric, welcome to Carolina Weather Group, your first official night as a panelist.
Thank you. Glad to be with you tonight, and hopefully at the end of this show, you won't rescind that contract and just pull the cord on it. But I am glad to be with you and put a little Western edge on your listening area over there, and talk about weather patterns that are coming your way in a day or two, as the weather patterns usually run from this way over that direction. So I'm glad to be here. I am a by trade, meteorologist for FedEx, aviation meteorologist here in Memphis, and coming up on 13 years there. Really enjoy the time I do there, and that's mainly in a admin support capacity for the department, but sub-in forecasting at times as well, and cross-trained on just about everything there. And also run here in Memphis, memphisweather.net, which is kind of the Memphis brand of small business that I own called Cirrus Weather Solutions. And we do provide weather forecasts and live severe weather coverage wall-to-wall on social media for storms that come through the Memphis area. I have a couple of great interns from Mississippi State who help to maintain the page and the feed on Twitter and Facebook and so forth. And we've been doing that for several years now. It's turned out pretty good, and have pulled in some pretty nice side gigs with that as well, doing some consulting work for various festivals and sports teams and so forth here in the Memphis area. So glad to be with you guys and being part of the gang.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, and like we said, we're looking forward to your perspective, and welcome again to the Carolina Weather Group on a full-time or on a regular basis for now. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's go over to let's go up to Peter's world. Peter, I guess you what was it, Monday morning? You guys had that active storm system move through, kind of woke you up with a tornado warning up there in the outside of Philly.
Yeah, it was Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. Yeah.
Such excitement at 6:30 in the morning. I got woken up, tornado warning in my county because we had the remnants of Tropical Storm Cindy come through early Saturday morning. But luckily, no damage around my house or any town around me. But farther up north got pretty destroyed with trees down, wires down, all that good stuff. And then, what was it? A couple days before, I think we had another like squall line come through, a bow echo, and that destroyed things too. So it's been kind of an active week or so around here with all this heat and humidity. But the last couple of days has actually been pretty nice. Low humidity, low 80s for highs. Now we're going to go back up to the 90s again over the weekend with high humidity, maybe more storms on Saturday and Sunday. And 4th of July not looking too bad as of now. Mid 80s, kind of sticky out. Maybe a shower or storm. But hopefully we'll get those fireworks in and I won't get blamed for the bad weather.
There you go.
Well, Pete, that seems like a lot of activity for your area. I'm surprised you didn't snap off the coastline into the Atlantic.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Listen, we want man-made fireworks 4th of July, not Mother Nature's, right?
That's right. I could do without the thunderstorms on 4th of July.
There you go. Well, let's go to a guy who's not been with us for a few weeks. He's been out traveling the world on business, Mr. James Brierton. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Does this glass of wine answer that question, Sonny? Oh, I'm sorry. That's just grape juice. I would never drink wine during the show. Good to be back. Weather's been pretty nice here in Charlotte. I did snap some pretty aviation photos during my travels that I would like to share with you all. I made a trip up to, if it'll let me share them, made a trip up to Peter's neck of the woods. And then I made another trip up to Long Island, which is, in this grand scheme of things, also kind of Peter's neck of the woods, I guess.
It's not liking you tonight, James.
No, it's really not. Anyway, this was my return trip into Charlotte. This is somewhere over the skies of Jersey. With all due respect to Peter, this is Jersey at its best, about 30,000 feet up. And this was when I departed Charlotte the morning or two earlier. So it was just some really nice cloud photos. Maybe it was just the fact that I don't normally get the window seat. So I got the window seat this time. So I was quite happy about that.
And is that the best? Was that the best part of Charlotte too?
No.
No.
The best part of Charlotte, let's see,
is 5 o'clock traffic on 77.
No. I'm trying to think food here, Scotty. Could be Pinkies. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Pinkies is good.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that for now.
Listen, when you guys, sorry, I know we're rambling on, but when all of us meet in Charlotte, we are going to, James and I will take you to Pinkies.
Oh, I should let Eric know since he's new. Scotty forever says he's going to meet you for lunch and then never does. So
that's because someone has to go to New York all the time.
Oh, sorry. Peter doesn't want to see me when I'm up there either, so it's okay.
It's all good.
All right, you can tell this show's off to a great start. And I think that grape juice got you a little unfiltered tonight, James. I like it.
Throwing us all under the bus.
All right, I'm going to toss it to Shay, and then Shay, I'll let you toss it to Ricky as we can get into the show tonight. Shay, how's things been in the low country of South Carolina? You guys, you're calming down. No tropics, right?
No tropics yet. At least not that we can see. But James breaking the rule of thumb that he's been harping on me for: don't ever drink anything in front of the camera. Look at him. Look at him go.
It's delicious grape juice.
Well, let's see. This weekend we had some really hot weather. I mean, it was pretty hot with southerly sea breezes along the beaches. We had moderate flow. We got up to near 20 to 24 knots at times, especially just inside the coastal breaks. So we had some pretty strong Bermuda high setup with sea breeze circulations in the afternoon. That brought the winds up, of course. The sandbar activity off of Sullivan's Island, where we go kiteboarding a lot, the Wind Sports for Wounded Warriors was in town, so we had a really successful event with them. But there was six saves of swimmers that were trapped in deep water with strong currents, and 5 kiteboarders pulled 6 people out of the water on Saturday alone before the emergency management crews showed up. So we're getting a little bit of recognition for that. I think they're doing a story in the Post and Courier. And I know we just got to keep your eye out, especially when you're on the water. If you're out on the beach, keep your eye on people. If they need help, help them. It's a very quiet thing. You don't hear, it's not like in the movies where they're waving their arms and yelling and screaming. It's usually something where they're in the water and their head's barely above it. And they're just trying to keep breathing. So other than that, we had a nice little turnaround starting on Monday with a little bit of a northerly wind. kind of modestly pulsing to the area. Picked up to moderate levels yesterday and today, so we had a nice east-northeast sea breeze, which cooled the temperatures down. So we're down to the low to mid-80s for highs, and in the lows actually being in the upper 60s to low 70s feels really good right now. So we're going to milk that for the next day or two until temperatures slowly come back up into the weekend with a modest southerly sea breeze coming back into the area. And that's pretty much it. Our sea surface temperatures are 84.1 degrees. They're getting a little bit warmer. It should get even warmer with a southerly return flow. Tropics are fairly quiet in the Atlantic. There's nothing expected. There was a tropical wave coming off of Africa that the National Hurricane Center gave a very low chance. That dissipated today. And all eyes are really on the Eastern Pacific right now where more of the activity is going on. The El Nino, I know we touched on the El Nino, but right now the diagnostic is starting to slide more towards, in the ENSO discussion, more towards a neutral to a cold bias neutral phase, actually. So we may be looking at possible, I wouldn't say, I think there's still a possibility that we could have an El Nino by the fall, a very weak, maybe warm bias neutral, but it's starting to slide into the negative towards more of a normal status for all intents and purposes. So back to you, Scotty.
All right, thank you, Shay. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you're getting those sea surface temperatures up. So when I do go to the beach in a couple of weeks, I won't be chicken of the cold ocean water. So, anyways, all right, Ricky, I'm going to hand it off to you. I'll let you finish off the show.
All righty. Well, let's get things kicked off here and kind of do something a little different. I think it's the first time we've had radio meteorologist on before. You know, typically we're working with the television sides and some other sides, but we're happy to have Mike and Jennifer joining us tonight to kind of talk a little bit about what they do. Mike, I can't remember if you've been on with us before or not. Is this your first time with us? And Mike may not be there at the moment. So let's try with Jennifer. I know it's Jennifer's first time. So hi, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hi, thanks for having me. So yeah, I work for, as you mentioned earlier, Weather Eye Radio Network and weatherology.com. Basically, what we do is we do forecasts all throughout the country. We got a team of several meteorologists that do that, and then we input the forecasts all together and kind of work off of each other's work. And then basically my specific responsibilities in the morning as I do the forecast, I start at 3:30 in the morning. It's great because weather and radio never actually go to sleep. Yeah, and then I do, for radio, we have radio stations that hire us to do all these live spots and recorded spots for them. So basically what they do is I record like 28 to 30 seconds up to a minute to 3 minutes, sometimes 18 seconds, just a forecast that we've created for them. Send that off to them, and then they put it on the radio however long that they want to do that, and then keep updating them throughout the day. They also request us to do live spots with them. So in the morning, I have up to maybe about 30 calls with radio stations, and pretty much just chit-chatting about. It's really fun, actually. It's about 30 seconds worth of weather and 9.5 minutes of each station nearly about just whatever random topic of the day. So that helps kind of break up the weather pattern part of the day. And then we also do forecasts for golf companies and electric companies. So just to kind of tell people whether they should be going out or, to close the golf courses and whatnot. And severe weather cut-ins as well. So as soon as something comes in on our radar, we will cut into a radio station and be like, hey, this is what's going on. These are the locations. This is exactly what you can expect, whether it's hail or like a tornado warning or straight line winds. So we go into doing that. That generally takes up a lot of time, especially during the severe weather season. And then I'm partially in charge of educational outreach. So we'll go to some schools around the state, around other cities, and kind of trying to talk to students. A lot of times it's more young students to get them interested in STEM, not just meteorology or weather in specific, because we do also a lot of experiments, and it's with static, with electricity, with other things, and kind of talking a little bit about math and all the physics that goes and chemistry that go into specific sort of science programs. So I think that's, if I had known how much math and physics was involved in meteorology, that might have changed my idea. But we feel that we wanted to let people know, hey, just so you're not surprised, this is how it is, but don't be deterred, just be prepared for it. So yeah, kind of that's basically what we do.
That's awesome. Always good to get the word out about weather safety and STEM and everything like that. Your company, how big is the company? And then how common are these companies? I know there's a couple big ones in the United States who do kind of weather for radio, but how does yours kind of fit into the whole collection?
I believe ours is the largest privately owned company. We only have about, I think, 13 meteorologists that work. So, and it's 24-hour company, and we're, I think, the primary ones that do the severe weather cut-ins. That's really what makes us different from all those other companies. And we do it also on a broader range, whereas other companies will specifically do just something around, whatever National Weather Service area is. So whether it's, Lincoln, Illinois for central Illinois, or the Chicago area, or the Twin Cities, or, LA, and we do it for the entire United States. So that's kind of what sets us a little bit different, particularly with our how we cover severe weather.
Okay, let's bring in Mike, and then we'll kind of circle back around and bounce off both of you for some questions. Mike, tell us a little bit about how your job differs here in the Tri-Cities.
Well, what I end up having to do is I do basically what you do, actually, except the difference is, of course, it's radio, so I can't show anybody anything. So, half minutes to do weather like you do either, Lucky. What I do is we have a bunch of different frequencies with translators and all of that. And my job is to, every half an hour or so, tell everybody what the weather is going to be. And severe weather, that's my goal in life, is to tell people, hey, you got problems, take shelter whichever way you need to. And with 4 different stations, that can be interesting. At least they're all in the same building. That helps. And they're not very far away from each other either. But on a daily basis, because around here in this part of the country, there's not a lot of severe weather that happens that will require long form point. So what I do is I'll have the weather forecast a couple of times an hour and get updated just to, as I can, tell what to do. And those forecasts can be anywhere from 15 seconds to 30, and the 30 is actually 40 because of the intro and the close that's added to it on one of our stations. And that's pretty much it. It's just a daily forecast that I do. I do have a weather blog, tricitieswx.com, and whenever I do a forecast, I'll post to all of my social media and all of that, and just weather information out to people. That's the goal.
I mean, it seems like the number one thing with radio is obviously it's shorter. Mike was talking about how there's 20, 30 seconds. Jennifer, you mentioned you guys do 30 seconds. Talk a little bit about the challenges of that. Either one of you wants to go first, and how you have to kind of condense what you want to say, what I may say in 3.5 minutes, especially on a big weather event day, into that tiny little time frame.
Well, for us specifically, I mean, I was actually part-time at a TV station. So it's easier, obviously, to be in front of a green screen and point to things and say, here's what's happening. You can see what's happening. And as I moved and transitioned over into radio, you realize you really have to, as Mike was saying, that you really have to describe it a lot more. I found myself pointing to the computer screen and be like, oh, no one can see that. So yeah, I mean, it really boils down to what the station really wants. So whereas, you might be going into 3 minutes talking about, you've got this low pressure system going into this and that, most of the stations, because they only have a certain spot allowed per hour for the weather, they just really want highs, lows for the, for today and the next few days. At least for us. Now, some stations, the ones that we have that are 1 to 3 minutes long, will go into a synoptic forecast on, here's what's happening. We've got this, Alberta Clipper coming in or something of that sort. And then the last 30 seconds ends up being more of a specific. Now, here specifically for this area, here's your forecast, high, low, high, low. So that's kind of, it's really hard to kind of really and describe it as opposed to just pointing to it. So it really was quite a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing, especially if there's a lot going on. Like 17 seconds, for example, I get It's actually tonight and tomorrow. And that's as far as I can go most of the time, especially this time of year where every afternoon and evening is showers and thunderstorms. So it takes a while to say showers and thunderstorms. So the more detail you need to have, the less you can say. And we've tried to combat that is to do forecasts and just rotate on the Top Gun radio. I used to be on every 15 minutes all day long with my 17-second forecast. And to keep that from being absolutely ridiculous, I have to record 3 different ones. So if there's a day when I have a lot of things I need to talk about, I'll say part of it in one, part of it in the next one, and part of it in the third one if I have to. And then hopefully station with the time spent listening aspect. If they're listening for long enough, they'll get all 3. If they other stations don't necessarily work that way. The one station, WHCB, that's the one I've got 30 seconds. So if I need to take 30 seconds talking about what's happening today, I can do it. That's not a problem. But on those stations where there's 15 seconds, now that there's pretty much just one forecast I do every day, that can be very, very difficult to kind of organize everything.
Are there certain areas, especially Jennifer, since you guys do a region-wide forecast or forecast for many different places, that you find want longer forecasts, kind of want those long-form synoptic forecasts, maybe because of the region they're located in?
No, most of them don't want that longer synoptic forecast. Actually, it's very few and far between that we actually get it. So, and it is really sparingly. So we've got some in, we really have one in every region: the Midwest, the South, the Southwest, the Southeast, and New England. And yeah, it's really very random. Okay.
Any specific things per region that they want, or anything different per region that they would want?
Well, in the Midwest, it's mostly, it's a lot more of the Midwest and Gulf Coast regions. It's mostly, talk about the heat and humidity during the summer months. And then in the winter, particularly in the central and northern plains, they really want you to focus on where is it going to be snowing? Where is it going to be the hail sleet mix? Where that fine line is going to be? And then that ends up being really difficult to actually add in those 30 seconds. So whereas, on a normal high pressure day, I'd say, well, here's your forecast today through, Friday, I can get 5 days in. When there's something going along the lines of like, well, we've got a rain, snow, sleet turning into rain and then back into snow in the overnight hours, but a little bit of, hail coming in as well. Or not hail, but, freezing rain or something. It ends
in Oklahoma, you never know.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. It ends up being more of I can only talk about today and tomorrow because there's that much information in 30 seconds that I can give out. So, and then, in the Southwest region, it's hot. It's a pretty easy forecast overall. And just the rain that's in, the Pacific Northwest. So it just, mostly the most difficult things are going to be more along the Gulf Coast region and the central and northern plains, because that's where it's, going to be the most humid, sticky, and constantly changing.
Mike, the same kind of applies for our region. We have the valleys and the mountains. Is there a struggle in communicating that across our region?
It's a vast struggle with that. 17 seconds, it's basically like, especially this time of year, showers and thunderstorms, better chances in the mountains. That's as far as I can go. Higher elevations, maybe. In 17 seconds. Again, 30, that's a little bit better because I can a little bit more. And like there are thunderstorms that are going to develop in the mountains, could drift into the Tri-Cities. That happens all the time. But yeah, with time constraints, it's really, really difficult to get everything in.
We talk about time constraints, but in a world that kind of works in 140 characters and only reads the headlines on Facebook, is perhaps that a good thing in some aspects? Obviously we can't get detailed into the forecast, but maybe that's all people want sometimes.
if I was to sit there and write it out and say, tweet the same thing I broadcast, it would actually work for the shorter ones. I think it would be quite second station to the Twitter stations. I guess you could say it that way. Those are kind of comparable.
And Jennifer, how do you guys go about kind of composing what you're going to say?
Yeah, well, we've gotten from feedback because we kind of tested that a little bit to see what people wanted to see on Facebook and Twitter and other sources of social media. And it turns out a lot of times it's just they really do want something short and to the point. If you want to talk a little bit more about it, we will go into a blog. But, you know, generally what we've understood, especially with radio and social media, it's just the aspect that, you know, generally people are in a rush. They're not going to be in their cars for too long to be able to listen to a, you know, ridiculously long forecast. And then, you know, they just want to scroll through Twitter. Oh, okay, in my neck of the woods, it's going to be sunny, high of 80 and, you know, very low wind. So that's generally what we've focused on, you know, as far as a specific forecast or, you know, regional kind of forecast. Hey, this is happening. And people seem to be really responsive towards that.
Okay. What was that viewer question? There it is. I had a question from one of our viewers, and this kind of ties into a good segue here. You know, in my area, I work with WCYB TV, and we actually do radio for a few of our local radio partners that we work with. And so Craig's question was, how hard is it to compete in radio for weather when local TV stations have many of these deals with radio stations across the nation?
Well, for us, we generally do a little bit more of the smaller radio stations in kind of rural Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, the Dakotas, and onward and forward. So, you know, the TV station that I used to work with, it was the local meteorologist that would go on and do the forecast. I think mainly because in a bigger city, people tend to gravitate towards someone that they know what they look like, they know what they sound like, and they kind of tend to trust a little bit more when they can see it. So that's kind of the other aspect of radio that people don't seem to, you know, realize. It's, you see someone on TV, you get the way, you know, their mannerisms, the way they're talking, the way they look, you tend to trust them a little bit more. And so we tend to stay, because there are those contracts with those bigger stations in the bigger cities, we're a little bit more on the smaller stations and focusing on areas that might not be as focused on with, you know, those big city type meteorologists.
It was really funny one time we did a school talk, Chris Michaels and I, in Kingsport, and we asked the kids, hey, do you guys, you know who we are? Have you ever watched us? And they're like, no, but we know your voice because of all the radio stations that we work with. They knew our voice from there, and they recognized it, I'm assuming, from one of the radio stations in the Tri-Cities. So I thought that was kind of neat. Mike, how's competing against me?
It's kind of annoying walking into a business and hearing your voice doing the weather. I'll look toward the speakers like, Ricky, shut up. But it's in our specific situation, really try to compete with you guys or WJTL, the other station around. It's kind of working together, like when we went to Shady Valley for that. That was kind of a working together thing. So I don't know, for my case, I don't know if we compete necessarily. I think it's a lot of working together. I mean, sure, I'd much rather have people listening to my stations and listening to me than listening to those stations and listening to you by far. You know, that duh. But me competing with the TV stations, that's not necessarily a thing, because really, honestly, the only big difference, people are going to be in their cars listening to, say, one of my stations. They'll hear me do a forecast. That's a little bit easier, although nowadays with phones you can stream Ricky's videos all the time. But it's a little bit easier to hear a forecast off the radio when you're driving than it is to try to pull up the app and do all of that stuff. So that helps.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, because, I mean, a lot of times you're in the car, and it's not like you're going to flip the channel, or you may flip the radio station, I suppose, if commercials come on, but you're kind of in that mode where you're not really going to be doing a ton of other things. So you almost have the viewer's attention or the listener's attention, unlike us on TV where we're trying to compete against them getting ready in the morning and doing 5 other things and, trying to wrangle their dog out the house and everything like that. So.
And we've heard a lot from people that they'll have their radio on in the background while they're getting ready for their day. So they'll be TV and can't hear it, but the radio is still there. Of course, I know TV has audio too, but our listeners will station on all the time. And when the singers start, they know, hey, it's time for the weather before they even say the word weather. And then they'll be able to, as far as severe weather situations, it's more difficult because of what Jennifer was talking about earlier. I can't show you anything. Eventually, if I start doing Hangouts or Facebook Lives or something like that, that could be a possibility. I could screen share it or something. But when it comes to that, and in severe weather situations for me, I have to jump between studios. I don't have a override switch is what I call it, where I can just go in a studio, hit a button, and I'm on all of them at once. I can't do that yet. The Shady tornado a month ago, I guess, maybe longer. But after that, some of the staff around here said, yeah, I agree with you now. You really do need something like that. And we've just moved from, we used to be in downtown Bristol. We're now in Bluntville, which interestingly, we mentioned FedEx earlier. There is a FedEx location about over here that we are headquartered next to now. And everything together yet. So that's part of the challenge as well, to just try to get everything put together to where it works. But at the very minimum, bouncing between studios updates every 5 minutes is how it ends up having to be done. And I just, with severe weather, it's just make sure to where everything is. And you got to know a lot of places, like James Spann knows where all those barbecue joints are and all of that stuff. And Jason Simpson does the same thing. It's you've got to do that when you're doing radio, because people will know that you can't just show it to them.
Yeah, you could definitely say that you need to know the layout of the land, county by county, city by city, when you're talking on radio for your area, I would imagine. James, I mean, we've done a couple of Carolina Weather Group shows where we covered storms and covered power outages from Western North Carolina all the way to the coastline one night. It was quite a feat, but he was on top of it. He knows North Carolina better than I would. He knows it better than I would know South Carolina, and I'm from here. But how your outreach for the Tri-Cities, how far out do you go? I mean, you said that both of you work on smaller radio. I'm not that familiar with how radio works and with TV stations as well. I know here we have some of the main channels, the TMA, whatever bandwidth that is in every city. The TV Mets come on, and they sort of give a little spiel on all the major radio stations. But your outreach to your audience, how far out do you go? Do you go across the country with all the smaller radio stations? And do you have folks that call the radio station up and ask, what are they thinking?
Yeah,
and I guess that'll go to Jennifer.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We have, I mean, like I said, we broadcast all across the country, and because there are so many of us in at a time, everyone kind of takes a different region, and we have the kind of relationship with our clients that we set up generally before the severe weather season starts, whether it's, kind of January, February, kind of maybe even into early March, start talking to them like, hey, so what might be something like a landmark that we need to know, whether it is a restaurant or there's, something specific on whatever road that we can see on our radar. So, as Mike was saying, we definitely have to be able to, describe the area as to the best of our knowledge. And because we do it for such a broad range, we're not as well versed as to what's where, but we do with the best that we can. And, we do immediate break-ins. We call in the radio stations and we're like, hey, listen, you've got the severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning. We ask them if they want us to cover it. If they don't, they just ask us for the information, and then they'll go on and they'll cover it. Otherwise, sometimes we even have a break-in where we can override the radio stations and just be like, hey, here's what's happening. And a lot of times, you know, we can go into as specific as we can, but that's kind of one of the disadvantages, that we can't do exactly like, hey, you know, when you turn on Route 39 and pass the KFC, you know, that's not something that we're going to know. But we do have, for certain parts, most of our radio stations, and we kind of have a list showing like, hey, if you're talking about this area, this is kind of what they're known for. So kind of talk it in relative to that specific kind of landmark or whatever. So we do it with great difficulty, but people seem to really appreciate the fact that we're helping them out with that kind of stuff.
I always think of some of the old like 40s and 50s radio wave forecasts. When they would come on, it would sound like a horse race, and they would talk about, you know, horse number 3, horse number 4, except it was a storm in such and such county, and going and going and going. Oh, yeah. I don't imagine it's probably like that anymore. But Mike, from your perspective, for the Tri-Cities area, do you feel like some days it's like that? I mean, you have a lot of ground to cover in metropolitan areas. I mean, you're with Jennifer as well, going across the country. Do you feel like it's a horse race at times?
It is. A lot of the times we have the interesting situation of when storms are headed our way, they kind of die out before they get here. And that helps a lot. Occasionally, like I keep mentioning Shady Valley because that's the most recent thing. Occasionally, they'll come in and go over a mountain, and then coming down the mountain, they'll spin off a tornado like that storm did. The storms are pretty much worn out by the time they get here. That said, and not have to count on, or not something you can count on as far as like climatology is concerned, because it seems like we get severe thunderstorm and tornado watches for a lot of people around here, and quote, nothing really happens. It's easy to get caught up in that, and then when you have a storm that just pops out of the middle of nowhere, it kind of reminds you to expect the unexpected whenever there's storms like that. And it's the topography of the area is really the big thing, and the valleys around here kind of affect the rotation of the storms and all of that. It's definitely interesting to keep track of.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Shayla's talking about, Jennifer, I'll direct this question first to you, since you're kind of doing more of a national scene. You're talking about how you guys maybe divide into different regions. Is it harder for you guys to, or for maybe, I guess you can't speak for the others, but for yourself, is it harder for some regions to forecast than others? I mean, I know here in the Southeast, everybody on the panel here can tell you, you know, the Carolina wedge is really difficult to forecast here in the Carolinas, or maybe is where the storm's going to fire, or where's the dry line going to fire in the Midwest. How hard is it kind of juggling all those different regions and trying to get a great forecast when you have so many nuances to forecast off of?
Right, yeah. So again, it's mostly, you know, every Met here at Weather Eye does a specific region. So we've gotten to know a little bit better our specific regions, what makes it tick, what makes it, you know, what makes the severe weather pop up when, at what point of the day and whatnot. It's not as difficult as it seems. I mean, I've been here already for 6 years, so I've gotten used to the fact that I do most of the northwestern portion of the Midwest, and, you know, the Michigan and Illinois and Indiana, and all up towards even out towards like Montana, but not as much that as far west as Montana. But so I focus on that area, and, you know, when we're talking about, you know, it's you understand that there's humidity, you have that, you know, those types of dry lines that come in that can, you know, create things and install certain systems. Because I've been doing this specific area already for 6 years, it feels like this is my area. This is what I know what to do. And luckily, the other Mets that have the other areas, they're well versed in their areas as well. So when we connect it, it's easier to see. And we have a discussion because it is a radio station. All of us are in our different studios. We have a discussion being like, here's why I think this is happening. Let me know if you think otherwise. And then we'll kind of, if we need to tweak it because someone missed something or not. It's not often that happens, but Shay, you were talking earlier about, maybe something that's really quick fire, or, rapid fire, like a horse race. That's definitely something that happens, especially during the day. If something's going on from, the UP all the way down to Texas, we have all these storms that we're trying to cover and trying to get out to people. So, when you have something, and we generally have to talk about certain counties. Some radio stations don't want this county, or they want only a specific part of the county. So it is kind of like, hey, here's one of our stations. We need to give you your warning, but then I also have about 10 other stations I need to get to. So it is kind of like as much information as I can, get it out as quickly as I can, and then move on. So that ends up, but because we do such a broad range, I feel like it is kind of like a big, quick type of thing.
Do you ever have to skip over areas, like sort of stay out of the reach of the larger radio stations, or you just keep going right through?
Oh no, we keep going right through. Yeah. Because even though there's, let's say, for example, in the Chicago area, there are the main stations where, someone like Tom Skilling would be the radio voice for them. There are smaller stations in the suburbs that we will talk to. So maybe not directly to the, downtown area of Chicago, or, Indianapolis, or the Twin Cities, or wherever, but there are other areas that still do reach out into the city. It's just a matter of, who's actually listening to what. But yeah, no, we definitely don't leave anything out.
Understood. I think Eric, you have a question for Jennifer, correct?
Yeah, I do. So you talked a little bit about some of the background knowledge you get from the stations when you're, off air consulting with them, kind of figure out the local area and that kind of thing. So do you also get, I would guess, what the range of the stations, the signal reach is, so that you're not talking about things that are not important, they're too far out or whatever, and how do you manage that if it's different at all the different places?
Yeah, so we have our technology team actually has a program that tells us, we have a severe weather manager that's in charge of all that stuff. So every year, again, as I mentioned earlier, in like January, February, he starts contacting all these stations. It's a lot of stations. So we have to, spend a lot of time doing that and say, okay, what's updated? Because sometimes stations go through different general managers or different, different types of management or whatever. And yeah, we have actually a program that is specific to our company that tells us, hey, you have to call this radio station, only talk about this area. And then, once it's out of this area, don't talk about it. Or we want this area to be talked about, but only between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Or we don't want something overnight. So the overnight guys get a break because they don't have to talk to them. But most of the day, it's kind of like, yeah, so it really does depend on where they are. And some signals are stronger than others, particularly in rural areas. So yeah, we actually have a program that tells us, here's where you're going to talk about with this specific station. Then when you go to the next one, here's where you're going to talk about. So we have a pretty decent way of, kind of keeping track of that.
Cool. So the software that you're using then is built in-house to do that. They manage the software in-house for that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And is that the same thing for your weather software that you use? Are you using just standard off-the-shelf tools for radar and just general synoptic patterns and stuff like that, or internet, or are you using a third-party company that provides that, your background weather information to you?
I mean, for when we generate our own forecasts, again, we have something that was created specifically for us from our tech guy. So it is just a unique system for us where we input, say here's going to be this region is going to be in the 60s, and we tweak what's going to be where in what city. But as far as actually coming up for the forecast, yeah, we use, national radar, specific radar. I look at surface maps and upper air maps, generally what you would see from, any sort of government kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Question for both of you guys, because I know how winter weather is covered here in the South. Eric, you probably know as well. What is more difficult for you guys on the radio side, severe weather or winter weather? Maybe depending on the region it's affecting.
For me specifically, it's winter weather. I cannot stand it. Because again, if I'm forecasting for several states at a time, I take several hours to do it. But, especially in the upper Midwest, it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly where that line is going to be, because you could have one area that's going to get 10 inches of snow and then move 5 miles north and they're going to get maybe 1 inch to 2 inches. So it's really hard, as opposed to a meteorologist that's going to be in one specific area. Let's say, you're around Fargo, North Dakota, and you're just forecasting for Fargo and just that area, you can really hone in on that kind of thing. But because I'm doing it for a broader area, for me, it's a lot more difficult. Severe weather, it's pretty much the only thing you're going to get is it's going to rain, it's going to be windy, and there may or may not be a tornado. And, you may likely get some hail. But with winter weather, there's so many different aspects, especially in the Midwest, that you'll get, snow, the snow ratio, and whether there's going to be freezing rain or sleet. And then sometimes we throw in some grapple. And that's what ends up being really difficult for me. And especially, if some stations are like, okay, well, specifically for this area, you're saying this is what's going to happen. What if I go a little bit farther to the north, then I have to switch over and look, okay, well, what's happening in that area? And so I have to have kind of like a big map of our forecasts of saying like, okay, well, let me check what that's going to be. Well, they're not going to see as much, even though they're farther north. A lot of people seem to think that, the farther north you go, the more snow you get, but that's not necessarily always the case. So it's kind of hard to forecast for that, speak about it, and describe exactly what the synoptic is for all that kind of stuff.
Winter weather is difficult, especially when you have only 15 or 30 seconds to tell people what's about to happen. And around here, this part of the area, Ricky may know a little bit about this too, we tend to be on the line. Sometimes we'll have south of the Tri-Cities, Greenville, down that way, close to Knoxville, close to Morristown. It'll be all rain all the time. And they're like, well, what are y'all talking about? And then you go into Southwest Virginia in say, Wise County, where if in the Tri-Cities you get 2 snowflakes, Wise County's got 3 inches and their schools are out for a week. It's a huge range. And when you factor in the possibility of sleet and freezing rain, very difficult. And then trying to communicate that in a short amount of time, it's very, very much a challenge.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. For us, you get up to 10 inches of snow and people are like, yeah, still going to work today. Nothing's closed. Let's go.
All right, Scotty, did you have something you wanted to show as we're getting close to the end? If not, I have another question, and we can't hear you.
This guy's muted again. Well, Jenny, Ricky, go ahead and ask yours. We're going to get weatherology.com up on the screen and do a little presentation, and we're getting to about 10 till the hour. So we want to give Jennifer an opportunity to introduce her website and talk a little bit about it, and then wrap it up with our golden question of how they got into weather. So go ahead.
All right. So my question for both Jennifer and Mike, and I already know Mike's answer, but I'm interested to hear him, is what's the biggest weather event you've covered so far?
Oh, man. And I'm going to – where was that? The twin tornadoes that happened, what, a year or two ago?
Pilgrim, Nebraska or something like that?
Yeah, that's where it was. I wasn't specifically covering it, but my coworker was, and we were trying to help them out with, it was more of a collaborative type of thing, like, hey, we're going to help you out. Here's what, because we all kind of have different knowledge of what's going on, like, certain areas in that, certain things in that area. So we were helping out with that. So I wasn't specifically on the airwaves for it, but, when you have something like twin tornadoes, that doesn't generally happen very often. It's really very kind of scary. You get in these types of situations where, you realize you still have to be professional, yet you cannot, and especially being a weather nerd, you want to be like, oh, that's super cool, but not really, because we know what's actually happening. So, yeah, I think that's the one that comes to mind.
As far as I'm concerned, and Ricky, I've talked about this with you a couple of times, so yeah, it's obvious. And it's April 27th, 2011 is the big one. I've been 3 years. That was the third, I think. It was myself worked up a little bit because I watched all the coverage from Alabama, Mississippi, and all of the stuff that was going on down there. The Tuscaloosa tornado, I watched that all the way through. And then toward the end of, but at some point it was happening both there and here. So I had to move into my own coverage, and then words train wreck come to mind because I had a radar system that's working off Java. You know where this is going. Everything got busy because everybody was looking at the radar and all of that stuff, and it went down. Had a white screen on the monitor, could not see anything. Eventually, I got everything restarted and fixed that problem in the midst of coverage by myself. And then I'm doing a tornado warning. And also, too, on radio, something if you're in the studio, TV station has it too. But every radio station has the emergency alert system. Well, it will interrupt you. If you're talking, if you see the warning before it gets it and you're talking about it, it will cut you off. I had to dodge those, and a few times I was unsuccessful with that. And then there was a tornado warning for Bristol, which is where our studios were at the time. That heard hail hitting the back door. Doors in that building. Heard the golf ball size hail hitting the back door, and then boom. Power went out. Flat gone. And all of our stations went off. And at the time, I only needed to be on one because the others didn't have their translators and associated FMs and all of that. Was spooky. To be in a radio station, everything, our computers ran for 15 minutes, but the equipment that got everything to the transmitter had shut off. So for about 15 minutes, I was able to tweet warnings and all of that stuff at the time. And then those computers went down in the back door, and I just said, okay, I'm taking cover. I can't do anything else. So I went into one of the offices and sat there, and everything at one point went down. I couldn't even use my cell phone. Very kind of isolating, in this age where you can get hold of anybody at any time. I couldn't get hold of nobody for anything. And eventually, one thing at a time, everything came back up, the power came back up, and off. But that and we lost I think 14 or 15 if you add one that way a couple of years later, 14 or 15 people from that. And I know it's not 252 Alabama for that day, but losing 14 people in 3 tornadoes, both of those numbers have never been heard of in one day around here amongst locals. That's just a day I'm not, because of all of the stuff that happened. It was just phenomenal. It's
always the times when we don't expect everything to go wrong, and it seems that things go wrong sometimes. So, All right, let's see. Shay, go ahead. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
We wanted to go ahead and share Jennifer's website, weatherology.com. Let me know when you can see this.
Yep.
Good. Okay, yep. I'm going to present to everyone and just go right ahead. I'll try to click around on it a little bit, but it looks like this is today in weather history in 1980. Heat wave. We just had a huge heat wave out west. I mean, there's some really high temperatures, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about your website and how it works.
Yeah, so it is still kind of under construction, so we're still adding some things, just as a heads up. But yeah, so it's weatherology.com. That's that's part of our company, and right there in the center there, where you can see the 70th anniversary of the Memorial Day blizzard of 1947. Each of us, all the meteorologists here at Weather Eye and Weatherology, do blogs. So it's more of a, hey, kids might need to eventually get to the point where, they'll be doing some sort of research. So we want them to be able to use ours as an example. And we go through, some of them last for a little bit. Some of them are just forecast blogs that end up, expiring by the time they get to the evening hours. But then something like Beat the Heat or, the dangers of flash floods. We are in severe weather season, so that's something that we'll keep up for a little while. And you can see who has it. For example, there, my coworker, Michael Caro, you can see exactly which meteorologist wrote what. And we interlay pictures, and it's a lot of the stuff that we feel the need that people need to know, so you have the heat index and that kind of stuff. So I mean, we've been doing these blogs for a long time, and we'll continue to do that, and kind of updating it as the the season goes through. A lot of winter type of stuff that we end up going through. Yeah, they're under maps. We have a severe weather map, and that changes from day to day. You can see that at the top left of that map, you have day 1 risk, day 2, and day 3 as well. So it's kind of like what you can see from the National Weather Service, and actually I believe it's pulled exactly from there. So it's just kind of our version of it. So if you want to come to our website and see what exactly you can expect, that's one way to do that. And then we have kind of like we've got advisories, kind of what's going on. You can scroll in there as well and put your mouse over it, and you can see exactly what the advisory is. And I believe you're able to click on it too. So if you click on River Flash Flood or Tornado Watch, if you click on it, it actually pops up and tells you what's happening, or it should. There you go. Yeah. So there's the actual text from the National Weather Service for that. So we do pull that, but we make it into our own type of graphic so that we have it sort of, kind of personalized for us. We have a current radar. We do have apps that, again, are undergoing construction right now, but we do have a radar page as well. So it's just, I believe, you can start the loop, we can add warnings, you can hide the warnings. It does take a little bit of time because of the fact that we are adding and taking away a few things. So this is not showing the full potential of what the website is actually going into, but it's actually kind of neat to be able to see it. And you are able to see this on our app as well. A lot of people tend to really enjoy the fact that our app is kind of a little bit more interactive than some other ones, but it is available also for Android and Apple iPhone rather. So so it's kind of neat. We've also got advisories, reports. I believe if you click on reports, let's take a look here. Exactly what kind of storm reports there have been by storm spotters, emergency management, by whatever. And if you click on it, it'll take you a little bit closer. You can overlay your mouse and see exactly, so you can see that there was a tornado that was reported by emergency management, or how big the hail was. So if you do, if you're kind of curious and you don't know how to navigate around the National Weather Service, it's kind of neat to have this type of system that you can be like, oh, hey, I can just check out what the reports are in my neck of the woods. And there was 1 inch hail, but, I thought it was larger, but it really wasn't. Or I thought it was smaller, or that wasn't here. So luckily that kind of passed by us and went somewhere else.
Is that feeding off of the local storm reports there, or is that
yes.
Where's this data coming from?
I believe it's coming off the local storm reports. I don't believe it's as updated as the local storm reports, again, because our system is undergoing construction. So
that's fine. I like it. I like the interactive maps that you have here. They're pretty helpful. You can really zoom in and get a pulse of what's going on in the area.
Yeah, it's really neat. And under social, you can check out social. And, we have a Facebook, Twitter. We do have a YouTube, and I'll get into that in a minute. Google Plus, Instagram, and I was not aware that we had a Pinterest, but we have a Pinterest. So you can follow us on any of those. And each specific meteorologist also has at your Met and then our name. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow at your Met Jenny. And that's kind of where I go into that. But yeah, Twitter, Facebook, we update that every day throughout the day. And it's not just forecasts. Sometimes we'll focus on certain areas, but other times we'll also go into being like, for example, here's your weather history of the month. We have a Meme Monday or a Wacky Weather Wednesday where we talk about, something like sun halos or something that's not really, seen as often as you normally, or mammatus clouds, something that's kind of a little bit neater than regular weather. And I'm not entirely sure what you just clicked on. The widgets? Yeah. So for our radio stations, they're able to download widgets that they can take and put that onto their website. So that's kind of neat. So it makes it a little bit more personalized, and it gives them, I believe, the cloud cover. Yeah, you can see the current conditions, the actual forecasts, and advisory. So when you go to their websites, it'll show you from Weatherology, here's your forecast, just kind of like as a quick little blurb. We do videos also, and this is primarily, we have recommended videos by, I believe we do have the Twin Tornadoes videos up there. I think we do have something from the Moore tornado, other ones that are kind of neat experiments or whatnot. We do have ones that are actually by Weatherology, It's at the bottom there under the video tab, and that's something that one of my coworkers and we're the ones that are in charge of that. And we do science experiments and we overlay things from that. There are some old podcasts on there, or severe weather awareness from 2015. So that obviously hasn't been updated for a while. But if you go a little bit farther down, there's have some fun when things get bitter cold. So when it was getting bitter cold around certain areas, a lot of stations ended up doing like, oh, well, check this out. This freezes in under 10 minutes and we're going to shatter it. Or you can turn boiling water into snow. We baked cookies in a car. And we also show something about how to make a cloud in a jar. And that's one of the things we actually tend to bring to students at classes, because they seem to think that that's super cool to, all of a sudden get this cloud in a jar. So yeah, that's one of the things that we're focused on. The education tab isn't very updated, but we do a photo contest with some schools that talk about like, hey, here's, we would love to have you send in your weather pictures to us and we'll highlight them here, so just to kind of get some students interested and be like, oh, well, I want to draw a rain or a tornado or something along the lines, just to kind of focus them into the specifics about education. There's a specific blogs tab, and then under About Us, you can see that you go to About Us and then actually click on the blue Weather Eye team in the text. I'm pointing to my computer as if you can see that. And then these are all the meteorologists that work, so you can follow us easily this way instead of having to search for us. But yeah, this is the entire team at Weatherology and Weather Eye Radio Network. So yeah, that's basically our website.
Fantastic. Guys, you have any questions about the website? I was interested in the apps that you have here. I think that might be. I'm an Android guy, but we can get your app here as well. Is that free or is this a?
It is. Yep, it's free. Yep, it's free. And again, we are undergoing some updates with the app, but you are able to download it. You can check it out and see it. We've had people tell us that they do enjoy it. Some of it is interactive. I know they like our radar. A lot of people seem to think like our radar, and I believe we have a specific part with our apps that if you want to, you are able to upload your specific storm report. So let's say you are just randomly walking somewhere and you happen to see that there's golf ball size hail. You can upload it to our app and we'll be able to see it, and then we can confirm to see where that is and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of neat. It makes people feel like they're helping out, and that's exactly what they're doing. It helps us also to kind of have unofficial storm spotters, and or even some cool cloud cover or a neat sunset or something. And people really get into that a lot. So it's something we really enjoy seeing.
Very cool, very cool. Well, we're getting a little bit past the 9 o'clock hour, but we do ask all of our guests, at least each one, what got you interested in weather? Was it something that started at a young age, or was it something in your adult life? How did you get involved?
It's kind of a really strange story. It was kind of a vindictiveness against my 6th grade science teacher, which makes zero sense whatsoever. But basically, I was kind of terrified of storms when I was younger, so I figured that if I learned about them, I would get less scared. And that totally worked. Instead of hiding, now I'm like, yay, storms, let's go outside. Which I don't mean people shouldn't do that. When something's happening, go inside. Just a little PSA for that. But otherwise, in 6th grade, we had to do some sort of, a science project, a shoot-box diorama. I'm not actually sure if kids do those things anymore, but, and we had to pick some sort of natural thing, whether it's earthquakes or volcanoes, and I chose tornadoes because I wanted to learn a little bit more about them. And I just did something. I took cotton balls and colored them gray, and I used a Lego house, and I glued them all together, and I did a partial Lego house to show destruction. I just had a little Lego guy running away, and it turned out that the teacher gave me an F on it because she thought that my parents had done that. She thought it was too good, which makes zero sense. It's just Legos and cotton balls. And my 6th grade self thought that it would be revenge to get back at her by being like, I'm going to learn everything about the weather and become a meteorologist someday. I guess joke's on her. I don't know. It really makes no sense, but it gave me the motivation to, focus on something. And that's that's kind of the age that started on. Again, it's a very strange story, but that's what I remember most about that.
Now, hopefully you don't put her in the Polygon whenever severe weather's coming, huh?
Exactly.
How about you, Mike?
I don't know if there was ever a beginning necessarily. weather thing I remember was in one of my classes. I think it was in first or second grade, maybe kindergarten. I was in a class that the teacher asked us to draw an outside picture. And you know how everybody, like puffy clouds, you know, it's a nice sunny day and all that stuff. My clouds were black. And they sent this home with me and a note to my parents and said, there is something wrong with your child because he is drawing wrong color in his scene in school. And thereon I thought, well, there are dark clouds, so what's your problem? And like Jennifer with just being a saying, I'm going to show them that dark clouds happen, dang it. But it was more of a just thinking, why does this stuff happen? When I was younger, I was scared to death of storms too. So it was Jennifer, really. And by the time I got to third or fourth grade, I was checking out the same little blue weather book every time. My name was in the back of that book because I would just get it and read it over and over and over and over. And it just kind of went on from there. So I don't know. I don't have an event that actually started it really, but 5, 6-year-old mind, when I'm drawing black clouds and teachers are saying there's something wrong with me, that kind of started me off to find out how this stuff happens, and the rest is history.
I think what is it called? Astrophobia, I believe, is the fear of storms, and there's several names for it. But I think we have a show coming up with that in mind. Scotty, who is it that's coming on our show for that one? He's still on mute. Guess we'll figure that one out later.
I think it's quite ironic that our show with all the audio problems is about radio. I just wanted to throw that out there. Hit the nail right on the head and just state the obvious.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
no, Mike, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to shame you. I know Scotty's having some problems as well. It's just ironic, I think. Isn't that the world of broadcasting, right? Like we were talking before, you know, it always happens at the worst possible time.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially at the end. Eric, any questions from you? Anyone else? Peter?
No. Good topic, though, tonight. Thanks for being on, Jennifer and Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll go real quickly. Let's see. July the 5th, we'll have – I'm kind of going down the list. Usually Scotty does this, so bear with me as I look at another screen to find out. John Ziegler, he's chief meteorologist with WJZY in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll talk about his career in weather as we go out into July. It looks like we're fairly well booked all the way through. We got – I hate to keep just firing off of the events here.
Well, John Shay, I can tell you, John Ziegler will be joining us. He is the new chief at WJZY, like you said, so he'll be introducing us to himself. He's been on the air now for just a few weeks here in Charlotte, but he's also looking forward to getting to know more about the Charlotte weather. I think he's from Springfield, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, and I know that Scotty is going to want to ask about his dog. So tune in for that, because the man has a very talented dog, we've come to learn.
Very cool. July the 12th, we'll be talking about effectively communicating risk and uncertainty of flooding. As we head into July the 19th, we won't get too far ahead in dates, but July 19th, we'll talk about rip currents. We have Carl Barnes with the National Weather Service here in Charleston, one of my good friends and colleagues here. He'll be coming on, and especially with the latest events with folks having some hard time swimming in from sandbars here, it'll be a good topic to cover. But other than that, I think we're going to wrap up the show. James, if you want to close it out for us, we'll tune in next Wednesday at 8 p.m. And I guess we'll just end the show there. No. We'll go ahead and end the show right here. This is
Wait, what about the social media? That counts.
Yes. Yes.
The best place to find me is on Twitter. That's the thing that I'm using more and more often every day. I'm at WXMC, and that's just WX and my initials. And that will get you to me. I'll answer unless it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I will answer within, unless there's a lot of radio station stuff going on and I just can't get to it. But I'll answer pretty quick at my Twitter. It's at WXMC.
Yeah, so the best way to do that is either following us on Facebook at Weatherology, or you can follow me specifically on Twitter at YourMetJenny. And so I'm pretty good at following people pretty quickly with that, or replying to people quickly with that as well. So that's going to be the best way, at YourMetJenny.
Go Gators.
You're welcome. Well, Mike alluded to the fact that he was also a Cubs fan, so I had to bring that up. I'm not entirely sure. Sounds good to me. I've got one. There you go.
I can't even get my snowball at some point.
And Scott, he's back on. Tone,
you can hear
right
me
ahead. Yep.
Oh, well, it's about time. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Yeah, you guys are doing great. Go ahead and close the show out.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Great show.
We'll see you next week. Have a great 4th.